Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills Housing Update. So we have a lot to cover today, including January's year-over-year numbers, so let's have a look. In January of 2022, which was really the pot was boiling, but it was really the tipping point for the start of the market going nuts last year. So in January of 2022, our average price was $1,390,000. This January, so January of 2023, we are down over 26% year over year to $1,027,000. So 300,000+ drop in terms of our average price. A couple of points to note. So of the 37 properties that sold in January of 2023, only 2 of them sold over $1.5 million. So I have been talking a lot in January about how that price point is dead, and that number just supports that. It is very hard to find a buyer who's willing to spend over $1.5 million on a house right now. And so 2 of the 37 got over 1.5. Otherwise, everything was underneath that. So lots to think about if you're one of those higher ticket listings. Another thing of note, our detached average price last January was over $1.5 million was the average price of a detached house in Halton Hills. We are down to $1,059,000. So that is almost 31% off of our detached listings. And we're going into these listing appointments and people are like, what? My neighbor got this. Well, yeah, this is tangible numbers here. There's no lying how much our market and our pricing has come down year over year. And people have to remember, anything January, February, and March of last year, that was the peak. That was ridiculous. You're never going to get that pricing anymore. So that's sort of a snapshot of where our pricing has gone. Another thing of note, last year our average days on market was 10 days for the sales. This year it was 33, and I would argue actually it would be higher than that because a lot of the properties that sold had terminated, so it doesn't take into account those previous days on market from the times they were previously listed. So a big change in average days on market as well. So now let's just look at what happened last week to see how we finished off January and started off February. So Georgetown last week had 10 sales, which is a normal, right on trend number for Georgetown. We did have 14 new listings. So quite a few new listings hitting the market. I've sort of been waiting to see, not that I want it, but I've been waiting to see those higher listing weeks, and we are starting to see them. So 14 new properties on the market last week. I'm going to continue to watch that number closely because as those weeks go by and we continue to see more listings than sales is when we really start to see inventory pile on. We did have quite a few properties come off the market completely and not re-enter, so that helped keep inventory at bay this week. So that's something I'm watching really closely. Another thing to note in the sales that we saw in all of Halton Hills last week, half of the sales were between $1 and $1.4 million. That price point really died down for a bit, but to see half the sales in that price point happen and quite a bit of movement happening in that pocket, it's interesting. We were really seeing the under million move, and now people are starting to kind of climatize to where the market is, and they're still making moves. So that is good news for those million plus buyers where it was pretty quiet for a while. Looking at Acton had 2 sales and 4 new listings, so things are continuing to move there. Glen Williams and Limehouse had no sales and no new listings. The rural market had no sales and 1 new listing. So now looking at active inventory, again, this is not skyrocketing at any point here. I feel like it's going to at some point, but right now it's just not happening. So last week we were at 107 active listings in Halton Hills. This week we are only up to 109, so hardly took a jump this week. Georgetown went from 66 to 67. So despite having that gap, because we had some properties come off the market, it really kept our our inventory numbers almost exactly the same. So 67 active listings in Georgetown. Looking at our price points, under 800,000 is down from 7 to 6 active listings. And of those 6, 2 of them are actually freehold properties. So only very, very low inventory overall in the condo market compared to where we came from a few weeks ago. So that's interesting. 800 to $1 million. This price point took a huge jump from 16 active listings up to 21. So lots of competition starting to build in that pocket. It really is the pocket that is moving the most. But if we start to see inventory really pile on there, we will, we're going to start to feel a shift in the demand in that pocket. So 1 to 1.5 million took a big drop. It went from 24 active listings down to 21. And like I talked about, half of the sales last week were in that pocket. And so it's just interesting because that pocket was dead for a while. So that pocket dropped. Our more active pocket of the 800 to $1 million climbed. So I'm going to be watching sort of what happens if we start to see a little bit more demand in that higher price point. It has not trickled to the 1.5 million plus though. So 1.5 million plus remained the same this week at 19 active listings. And like I said, that price point is just really tricky, and the amount of buyers looking for that higher ticket property, the amount of buyers is virtually none. So tougher sales for sure if you're over that 1.5 million. Now looking at our other markets, Acton is up from 13 to 14 active listings, so nothing crazy there, and actually down quite a bit from where we started the year, well into the 20s. Glen Williams is down from 6 to 5 active listings due to a termination. Limehouse remained the same at 1, and the rural market is up slightly from 21 to 22 active listings. Okay, so covered a lot today. Our January pricing, obviously from where we came from last year, is way, way down. We are sitting between that million and 1.1 million in terms of our average price for a few months now. So that's staying pretty stable, and I think it's a good indicator of where our average price is going to be for a little bit. But I think the biggest question mark is really, are we going to start seeing inventory really hitting the market as we approach the spring? I mean, we still have a few months until the traditional spring market starts in like April, but I think people, if there's talks of bidding wars. I had a client, the house was way underlisted, but we were one of 24 offers last week, and the house did get 200,000 over what they were listed at. Sure, if you list a house at 700,000, that's $1 million house, you're probably going to generate multiple offers. You're probably going to get those crazy pricing. But as we hear these things in the market, I think it might reignite some sellers coming onto the market that thought maybe their ship had sailed in terms of having any kind of demand for their property. So watching this really closely, those were January numbers, and I thought at the end of January we would be in a much higher inventory position than we started the year with. That was not the case. I think February might be the month that we start to see inventory pile on, but as of the first week, nothing crazy. So I will be back next Tuesday. Have a great week, everyone.